Today's episode of Inspiring Teachers is brought to you by AmpedUpLearning.com. Amplify your teaching to a whole new level with so many resources for social studies, math, English, and more. Even check out some Hogger history resources while you're at it. Ling. I wish I had special effects. AmpedUpLearning.com is a great place for you to buy or sell resources as a teacher. You get a higher percentage than other websites, and they are a two-teacher-owned company in Texas, which is just kind of a beautiful thing. AmpedUpLearning.com and use promo code HoggerHistory to save money on your order. And thank you so much, Amped Up Learning, for supporting our educational endeavor here at Inspiring Teachers. Thanks, guys. I also want to thank Numi Tea. In this episode, we taste chocolate rooibos tea from Numi Organic Tea. Exceptional teas, awesome flavors, and a great price and value available worldwide at shop.numitea.com or numitea.com. Welcome in Jennifer Richardson. Let's talk science and winning Teacher of the Year today on Inspiring Teachers.
Welcome to Inspiring Teachers, a show bringing you classroom tips, motivation, and stories from successful educators. Join Tavis Beam and Danny Hogger as they explore the why of teaching.
Welcome to another edition of Inspiring Teachers. So good to be with you here. Danny Hogger here. Tavis Beam's in his... Welcome to another edition of Inspiring Teachers. So good to be with you here. Danny Hogger here. Tavis Beam's in his classroom, working hard on some woodworking projects for his lab over in Mount Diablo School District. And I'm here with Jennifer Richardson, who's in her 6th year teaching chemistry and last year's Teacher of the Year here at our high school district, which is very exciting. Jennifer, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, and we are going to be enjoying some chocolate tea from Numi Tea. So we get to taste this. I'm kind of excited. I've never had a chocolate tea before.
Yeah.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah.
It's not like overly strong. It's not a chocolate bar in a cup, but
Yeah.
I think adding some cocoa is even recommended on the package. That would be a nice little treat. But yeah, it's pretty tasty. So thank you to Numi Teas. The link is in the description for them, and we thank them for supporting our educational podcast. So Jennifer, it's great to talk to you, and we've never really talked that much, so this is kind of a first in front of a camera, which is not always a way to meet someone, but this show has been just kind of a wonderful boost for me as a teacher, reminding me why I do this and why the impact we have is so important. So I'm thankful for your time today. So I know you went to UC Davis, and that you are like a go-getter and like a very, I don't know if you would say this about yourself. It's always weird hearing compliments. I never feel comfortable getting them because I always feel like, what's coming next, you know? But what is it? How did your road in education start to becoming a chemistry teacher, and how did that begin?
Yeah, I'm one of those weird people who has never wanted to be anything else. So I can't remember a time before saying that I wanted to be a teacher. Like, you could have asked me in first grade and I still would have said I wanted to be a teacher. And I think by about middle school I was sure I wanted to be a science teacher, and then by high school I was sure I wanted to be a chemistry teacher. So
that's really neat. Interest in you, or you just saw yourself wanting to do that? What do you think it was?
for teaching in general, I have no idea why I've always wanted to do it. I've always liked helping people, and just helping other people has just been kind of a fun thing for me. So teaching always just kind of seemed where I wanted to be. I think I've had a lot of really great teachers. I've been really lucky in that. So I've kind of always seen a school as a positive place, which might be why I always wanted to go back.
That's nice.
With science in specific, part of it's my dad's a chemist, and my whole life, I grew up looking at a periodic table. So I had kind of a path towards that because of that, but I did love my high school chemistry teacher too. And so that, that kind of helped cement it. I was like, yes, okay, chemistry is my jam. That's where I want to be.
That's pretty cool. And it's neat that it's a teacher at the high school level who kind of helped direct, because you were already steering towards that direction. I came to it kind of later, and I feel like it's about 50-50 for the guests we've had so far. The people who've always known, and people who came to it later because they had either the drive or the skills or the passion. And then how was your experience at UC Davis? How did that program help shape you?
I loved UC Davis. I was a chemistry major undergrad, and it was a surprisingly small major. There were, for people who were just chemistry majors and not chemical engineering or whatever else, there was 10 of us. So it was really fun being in such a small group there. And then I also did the master's program there and the credential program at UC Davis because I loved it there and I wanted to stay. And I thought they had a great credential program. I had a lot of fun there and really good mentor teachers and a really good student teaching experience. And yeah.
It sounds like you had a supporting community that was really involved there that made you feel like you wanted to stay. That's kind of nice. Because some people bounce around, but you had some consistency there.
Yeah.
Is there a part of chemistry that you really enjoy teaching? Like when a unit comes up that you get excited because it's this time?
One of the things that we just did that I'm always excited, which is silly, but I'm always so excited to teach dimensional analysis, which is unit conversions.
Okay.
Which is like half the people's like least favorite thing to do in chemistry, but it's just like, no, it's so good, it's so logical, it makes so much sense, and I can get most, like, with enough like effort from anyone, I can get pretty much everyone to get it, and that's one of my favorite things.
All right.
It's like
the
kids who think they're bad at math,
but you
being
can
able to do
open
this,
it.
yeah.
That's a cool feeling when you can get someone to get that light bulb moment, when you can nurture that. And I think you said something kind of important. It's that you're so interested in it and you think it makes so much sense, it propels you over the top to teaching. There's definitely a few units in history that whenever I can see a direct line of the world today is because of this,
right?
Then I'm like, ooh, I could teach this really well. Like, look at all the things that this impacts. And like you said, even people who maybe don't come into history class interested, I'm like, well, if you give me a little bit, I'll get you over the top, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Like, I can totally get you there. So that's kind of a cool feeling. I can share that. You're also really active outside of the classroom, too, with hosting clubs and activities. Did you start that your first year teaching? Did that come after you've settled in? How did that happen?
Yeah, so I was... For clubs, I was a club advisor for a few small clubs that kind of started and fizzled out my first couple years teaching. But my husband, Mr. Richardson, was actually the first advisor for Super Smash Bros. Club, which is a tiny little club at first, but it has grown and grown, and we started being co-advisors because it's a huge club, and they also use my classroom. But that one, it started out just a little thing that we're like, who knows if it'll survive? And now it's one of the biggest and most active clubs on campus.
It is thriving.
Yeah,
it's
it
buzzing
really
in there.
is.
There's so many consoles in different versions.
Oh, it's
like the creators of that game should be proud that it has sparked and remains such a popular game. This many years after its original inception, it's bigger than it's ever been. There's new characters, new updates. And I was really impressed when I went in there. I wish I had more Fridays and days of the week free when you're there, because I would have been so psyched as a kid. And it's kind of neat to me how many kids are willing to stay after school when they've been here all day to be with some colleagues and have some fun with some friends. And a nice carefree, safe environment to have a good time with some people.
Yeah, you know, for a lot of the kids, a couple of the freshmen said that it was... One of them I heard say it's the only reason he stayed at Heritage rather than transferring to Liberty. Like, it's so important to these kids, especially because a lot of the kids who are in this club are not necessarily your sports kids or your popular kids or your theater kids. A lot of them are band kids, but a lot of them don't have a community otherwise, and this builds a friend group for them and is a really positive place, and they can just be themselves, and it's pretty accepting, which I really, really love about it.
That's huge, because it reminds me of what you said about UC Davis, where you felt like you had community. When I was at Cal State Fullerton, I transferred from a really small school to 36,000. I was like, where do I fit here? I'm scared. I'm overwhelmed. And it was the radio station there where I finally found a home and a job and friends and a meaning, like a purpose of like, oh, I see. I have a place here, and people accept me here.
Yes.
That's so huge. And the fact that you can take time to do that for students outside of school kind of shows how much you care. And that's been a trend on our show too, is like the teachers who go above and beyond because they really do want good things to happen for their students, good feelings, and who knows what kind of confidence that boosts that they will spread in other areas.
Yeah.
So that's pretty cool. In the time that I've been at Heritage, which is not very long, you know, your name came up kind of frequently among like respected teachers and leaders, and I kind of admire that about you, and I wanted to say that to you. It's always good to get good news instead of like, I want anybody here to confront you. how do you find your balance? What is it for you that, like, so you don't burn out or overextend yourself with all the hours and commitments that you have? What do you do?
You know, the most valuable thing in not burning out for me has truly been collaborating with the other chemistry teachers. When I started here, it wasn't a super collaborative environment, but the year after, my second year here, the year after I was hired, they hired a couple new chemistry teachers, and actually as part of our like BITSA and new teacher and like teacher evaluation goals, we said, okay, we're gonna collaborate more. That one seems easy, let's do that. And so we started writing tests together. And then from there we started writing unit plans together and curriculum together. And now I only make half the stuff I give out. And that is so helpful because otherwise it's so much. It's so time consuming. It's also kind of a battle of like just deciding what to let go of. Like I was just looking at a lab that I'd collected and I was like, you know, this wasn't the most valuable lab I've ever done. I'm not gonna grade this one. That's okay.
Yeah.
I collected it, I pretended like I was grading it, but I don't actually have to.
That's an important realization. And it's okay to change a plan. Around the room, there are posters of like the Ottoman Empire and different gunpowder empires. And I had them make group projects, collaboration. It was fine. It worked fine.
Yeah.
Then I printed a lot of copies of a table where they were going to go gallery walk and get all the other information and jigsaw it together.
Yeah.
And then I looked at the calendar and was like, it's September 10th and tomorrow's September 11th and I'm a history teacher. You know, and I thought it's now or never. What will they really gain more from? What's the valuable choice here? And I decided to go with a lesson plan for the calendar. And it wasn't the original notion, but I think after a few years of teaching, you start realizing, right?
Flexibility is so important. And, you know, that's one of the things is just like being able to let it go and just be like, okay, that maybe I'm going to have to completely scrap that plan and come up with something new. Oh, well, I've got 100 extra copies of something I no longer need. I'll save them. Maybe I'll use them next year.
That's right. That cabinet is full. I'm sure yours is too, of like possibilities, A, B, and C plan.
Yeah, exactly.
That's really cool. Tell me a little bit about like what makes a great lab. So opposed to when you see something like, I could probably lose this.
Yeah.
What are some elements that you know something's working well or having its effect in full effect?
For labs in particular?
Sure.
One of the best things for labs, and my favorite labs and the most valuable labs that I would never cut, are labs that are student directed. So of course we always have our cookie cutter labs, our labs where it's just like follow these instructions and you'll get this data and then you can do this math with it or something like that. And those have their place and they are valuable to see specific phenomena or whatever. But the best ones are the ones where we say, answer this question, you figure out how.
Cool.
And those are the most valuable for the students. They remember them the most, they like them the most, but they also get the most out of them.
Yeah.
I have a favorite lab I do every year where they design a way, they try and figure out a way to speed up a chemical reaction, and they design the experiment, they do the pre-lab, and they do the lab themselves, and they present on it. And those are the most professional presentations they do all year because they're just so invested in it because they designed this whole thing. That they do a really good job explaining it to the class, and they remember that. And I can see it too, because when they come into AP chemistry, they still remember that. And they may not remember anything else, but I try and really focus labs and activities in general and things where they are invested in it, student driven. And then when possible, if we can connect it to the real world, that's great too. That's another big thing I aim for. But it's sometimes easier said than done.
Yeah, no, I like everything that you said, and the connections of them having to reteach and understand well enough, knowing they need to represent the information really sinks it into a deeper level. And I love doing presentations like that. I have like a news you can use where they're the expert, and not just like here's what happened, but like I'll answer your questions. What do you want to ask me about this?
Yeah,
that's huge. It creates ownership. It creates that responsibility for learning. It's cool. Thank you for sharing that. That's a good tip for science teachers out there. And then 2 more questions. One would be, tell me about the Teacher of the Year award and what that meant to you and how that came about.
That was really surprising, actually. I found out like 2 days before I got the award, like the weekend before I got the award, that I had even been nominated because it was another of the chemistry teachers I collaborate with who nominated me. And she's like, I did such a good job with that, you better win. And I was like, oh, haha, yeah, right. Like, I've only been here 6 years, come on. Like, I haven't been here nearly long enough. And then a couple days later, Carrie's walking through my door, and I'm like, what the heck? It's been a really interesting experience, really surprising, and I always figured like it's too soon. Like I'm not, like I can't possibly be good enough to do that yet.
Sure.
So I still feel a little like unworthy of the award. But otherwise, I got it for the school, and then I had to write a huge essay about my teaching experience to qualify for the next level of it.
Right.
Which I didn't get, and that's okay. I was still like, whew.
Yeah.
Because if I did that, I would have had to do another major essay to get to the next
where
level.
is the end of that loop?
Yeah, and if you win that, you do a speech.
You're
And it's
kidding.
like, oh man. But
Yeah. So a good
so
level
it's
of
kinda like,
success,
whew,
an achievable, maintainable success.
but it was really, I mean, it was really exciting and humbling and just,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, congratulations. That's
Thanks.
really cool. With that in mind, we're about to wrap up. I just wanted to
Right.
ask you a question we always ask, which is, at the end of a school year, when they are moving on to their next year, what's something you hope they would have gained from your instruction and your teaching when they're walking out the door, aside from the material that you teach?
Well, aside from the material, I kind of hope that they gain an enthusiasm for science and a realization of how it affects their lives in such a way that they can be informed citizens when they go to vote or something else like that. I would love for them to just be informed enough about science to make decisions later on when they see it on a ballot. They can see, oh, I know what that means. Or if they see ridiculous things like deionized electrolyte water in the grocery store,
Right.
and they think, I know those words, and I know that makes no sense. That's kind of what I like. I just want it to. I know they're not going to remember every single thing, but the things that affect their lives and affect their voting and affect everything else, that's kind of what I hope they take away from it.
That's the best. It's
Yeah.
apply this and live a better
Yeah,
life, a smarter life
exactly.
because of it. That is awesome. Well, Jennifer, it's been a great pleasure having you on today, and it really appreciated getting a chance to talk, kind of for the
Yeah.
first time.
Yeah, seriously.
Thanks for going along with this adventure and everything you do for our students. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
And until next week, this is the end of Inspiring Teachers. Thank you so much for watching. New Me Tees for sampling today, and I'll see you on the next edition. For now, class is dismissed. See you later.